Transport the wallboard and pull a baseline. Transport the wallboard to the site and then move the wallboard to the installation position by manpower or by machine in accordance with the thickness of the wallboard. Before installation, firstly pull a baseline on the installation position before installation. The baseline should be perpendicular to the floor bottom or the beam bottom to guarantee the flatness and verticality of the installation wallboard. Besides, the door opening position should be marked. 2. Plaster the mortar. Dust before plastering the mortar. Wipe off the dust on the concave convex groove surface of the wallboard with a wet cloth or professional tools. Humidify the groove with water and then plaster the professional caulking polymer mortar inside the groove of the installation wallboard and the floor baseline to smooth the wall space. 3. Install the wallboard. Move the wallboard to the installation position plastered with the mortar. Pry up the wallboard with a crowbar at the bottom. Make the wallboard be against to the adjacent one with strength to squeeze out the redundant polymer mortar from the joint. And then scrape off the mortar outside the wallboard, guaranteeing that the mortar fully fill up the joint between the two wallboards. 4. Saw the wallboard. The specification of a complete wallboard is 610 mm in width and 2440 mm in length. If the end width or the height of one wallboard is insufficient to be a complete wallboard, the complementary board should be used. Cut out the width and the length of a complementary board needed with a portable cutting machine in accordance with requirements. Install the sawn wallboard into the right position and finally fix it with a wooden wedge temporarily. 5. Fixation. After installation and calibration, fix the wallboard with a wooden wedge temporarily in joints between the wallboard and the floor, at the bottom and on the top, two adjacent wallboards and upside down and downside of wallboards. The polymer mortar should be used to cohere. Besides, the Feta 6 or Feta 8 rebar with a length of 200 to 250 mm should be used for reinforcement treatment, namely inserting the rebar into the wallboard with a thickness of more than 100 mm. For the wallboard with a thickness of more than 125 mm, 2 bars of rebar should be inserted. 6. Calibration. When the wallboard is primarily assembled, a professional crowbar should be used to calibrate the wallboard and check the flatness and verticality with a straight 2M running rule. Seven. Joint pointing treatment. After installing the wallboard with jointing materials, the mortar outside the wallboard joint should be scraped off and point out the joint, which is generally 4 to 5 mm higher than the wallboard, to make the joint between wallboards more flat and firmer. 8. Mortar grouting. After 7 days of installation of the wallboard, start to fill up the upside and downside joints and the joint between wallboards of the well-maintained wall with professional polymer mortar and pull the original wood wedge and fill up with mortar. There are 2 points should be paid attention to. Firstly, fill up the wallboard joint with jointing materials evenly by the scraper. Secondly, the next process of joint pointing treatment can start only after 6 to 8 hours of completion of mortar materials. 9. Bury pipelines. When bury pipelines and switch socket boxes inside the wallboard, the water and electricity installation unit draw all positions of various grooves, boxes and cases of pipelines for strong and weak currents, and water supply and drainage, once on the wallboard in accordance with design requirements. While grooving, the size and the width of grooving should be designed firstly. Cut out the outline with a small portable cutting machine, and then chisel the wall by manpower lightly, strictly preventing from violent grooving. In the process of burying pipelines, the following problems should be particularly paid attention to. Firstly, the grooving should not be on both sides of the same position and should be carried out after at least 3 days of wall maintenance. If the same position of 2 sides of the wall is equipped with pipelines, cases and switch boxes at the same time, a distance of more than 100 mm should be left on the horizontal direction or the vertical direction so as not to decrease the sound insulated capacity of the wall. Secondly, the grooving depth should not be larger than 2/3 of the thickness of the wall, and the width should not be larger than 400 mm. Thirdly, the inbuilt method and standards of pipelines should be carried out in accordance with relevant requirements. The pipeline on the horizontal direction should not be larger than 350 mm. And after burying the pipeline, backfill the joint with polymer cement mortar in layers in accordance with the board joint treatment method. 10. Install the door frame and the door pockets. The well-constructed wallboard can meet installation requirements of various door frames and door pockets, like wooden doors, glass doors, swing doors, fireproof doors, etc. For more information, please consult the Technology Application Department of our company for schemes. 11. Joint anti-cracking tape sticking treatment. Joint treatment should be carried out after more than 7 days after installation of doors, door frames and pipelines. Firstly, clean up the joint parts, fill up the damaged holes, clean the surface, and then stick the anti-cracking tapes on the joint. Meanwhile, the following steps should be followed. 1. Clean up the dust on the joint surface before sticking the anti-cracking tape. 2. Firstly, stick the joint with the anti-cracking punch tapes of more than 50 mm in width by white emulsion. Compact the joint with a scraper along the joint, and then scrape off the redundant white emulsion and eliminate the bubbles below the mesh tape. 3. After the grouting mortar is maintained and dries out, stick the anti-cracking fiber mesh tape of more than 100 mm in width on the joint with white emulsion. Compact the joint with a scraper along the joint, and then scrape off the redundant white emulsion. 4. After the joint mesh tape, that is to say that the punch tape dries out totally, the surface decoration of the wall can be constructed in accordance with design requirements, like plastering the mortar. There are other problems that should be paid attention to. The joint treatment process should be constructed by plasters of the interior decoration unit. For punch tapes, products of good brands should be used. Before use, the tape should be soaked in water within 30 to 60 seconds. If the tape is not soaked in water, it can absorb water and produce bubbles. If the soak time is too long, the tape can be scraped easily. The soaked tape should be pulled one time with index finger and the middle finger so as to scrape off the redundant water.